those that are here, those that are on Zoom, and those that are on Facebook. Welcome to Torah class, a Parsha class on the given by the Rebbe on the Parsha of the week. This week the class is on the Haftarah of this week's Parsha. Okay, so it starts in your book on page number 3. Page number 3, correct. Okay, so here, that's to give introduction to Haftarah. The Haftarah, you come to listen to the this week and next week and the following week is the 3 weeks. We are in the 3-week period, and the way you commemorate the 3 weeks that we are in from Shivas B'Tammuz, which was on Shabbos, and the fast day was on Sunday, until after Tisha B'Av is they are broken up into 2 parts. The first 2 weeks, with part of the 3 weeks, which is a certain level of mourning, and then we go into the 3rd week, which is the week of Tisha B'Av, which goes even a deeper level of mourning, and then ultimately Tisha B'Av, the Tisha B'Av itself. But also it's connected to the portions, the way we read the Haftarahs of these coming Shabbosim. So it's divided into these coming 3 Haftarahs, the upcoming 3 Haftarahs, and then we have the 7 weeks that follow. The 7 weeks that follow Tisha B'Av. So in general, in text number 1, you have the general law. We generally read the Haftarah that relates to the theme of the Torah portion. In general, every week, the Haftarah usually is something connected to the Torah portion of the week until the 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av, from the 7th day of Tammuz. At that point, the Haftarah follows the time of the year. 3 readings recount the misfortune of the temple's destruction. And then after Tisha B'Av, 7 readings comfort the nation from the tragedy, and then the 2 readings discuss repentance of the holidays coming for Shabbos Shuvah, etc. Read the selection of Jeremiah, Parshas Pinchas, and other Parshas Mates, and the Parshas Devarim we read from Isaiah. So this week's Parsha this week's Haftarah has nothing to do with the Parsha. This week's Haftarah, Parsha Pinchas, has to do with destruction. Jeremiah's prophecy of destruction of the temple. Jeremiah was given the job, and that's you'll see in the beginning of his reading of this week's Haftarah. Jeremiah doesn't want the job. So for no prophets, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want the job either. But Jeremiah didn't want the job because he was given a job to prophesy destruction of the temple. Who wants a job? Who wanted a job to be a prophecy of destruction? But as you see, God tells him. So Jeremiah says, "Who am I to?" He's a young man. Jeremiah says, "Who am I to give?" And God responds to him. So that's in text number 2. So we'll just read the words. I mean, this is the beginning of the Torah. The words of Jeremiah, son of Chilkiyahu, of the priest. He was a Kohen, Asher B'Anseis Benjamin, who lived in Anatoth in the land of Benjamin. So, to whom the word of God came to in the days of Yeshayahu, the son of Ammon, king of Judah, in the 13th year of his reign. And text number 3, and it was the days of I'm saying the English, sorry, Yoakim. Yoakim was the days of Yoakim, who was the son of Yeshayahu, king of Yehuda, until the end of the 11th year of Tzidkiyahu, the son of Yeshayahu, the king of Yehuda, until the exile of Jerusalem, the 15th month. And the words came to him saying, because you have to just know before, and Yirmiyahu says, "I don't want the job. Who am I? I'm a nothing. I'm a nobody. Why are you picking me to be the prophet? Why? Go pick somebody more special. I have no great qualifications, and I don't really deserve this job. Find a better candidate." So God answers him saying, When I have not yet formed you in your womb, I knew you. And when you have not yet emerged from the womb, I have appointed you. A prophet to be a nation, I made you. So don't tell me who you are. Don't tell me your qualifications. Your qualifications I knew from the time you were born. I knew when you were in your mother's womb. I knew actually you before you were in your mother's womb. So who are you telling me who you are and what your qualifications and capabilities are? And I said, oh, last will and not speak for I'm but a youth. So still, Yirmiyahu still says, I'm a young guy. I think he was in his 20s. And God said to me, say not I am but a youth. For wherever I send you, you shall go. And wherever I command you, come sit down.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Wherever I command you, you shall speak. Fear, here's the book. Fear them not, for I am with you to save you, says God. We are going to talk, this is a sikh, a beautiful sikh of the Rebbe, on the 5th verse of this day, this Haftarah. God says, God is trying to impress upon Yirmiyahu to go to do his job, to be the prophet. And he says to listen, when I have not informed you in your womb, I knew you. What is the meaning of this whole thing? Why did he need to say this to him? I mean, Yirmiyahu telling him, I knew you before you were born. I knew you in your mother's stomach. I knew you when ultimately you came out of your mother's. We could have told him, I knew you when you were bar mitzvah. That would make more sense to tell him. I knew you. I know your capabilities. Why does he say these expressions? I knew you before you were born. I knew you when you were in your mother's stomach. What did he want to tell him? This, and the truth is, the real question is, we're over 2,000 years from the destruction of the temple. None of us was at the time of the destruction. What are our true feelings of the destruction of that? Really, the question is, we're going to the 3 weeks. The Gemara has an expression that those who mourn the destruction will merit its rebuilding. How are we supposed to mourn a destruction that happened 2,000 years? How is it possible to mourn something that happened thousands of years ago? Really, do we really comprehend its loss? Do we really understand the meaning of the loss of the temple? Was it a loss of a beautiful building? What is the loss to us? So really, what does it mean? We're supposed to mourn and do things or not do things that we usually do during the year. And it comes to Tisha B'Av, especially in the 9 days, we're supposed to really go into the aspect of laws of mourning. It says in the beginning, it says, Mishenichnas Av. It's this week, actually. The coming week is the Av, month of Av. Mishenichnas Av, Mematim, B'Simcha. The halacha says you have to diminish the aspect of joy. I mean, none of us was by the destruction of the temple. How are we supposed to feel a destruction when we're not there? And we're far away from there, far away from that time, far away from the time of the destruction of the temple. What are we supposed to really feel? The temple, what is the true meaning of the Beis Hamikdash that we should feel thousands of years later, in the year 2022, we should feel something about its destruction? It's a good question.
I thought it was a ritual.
You mean?
That iron answer. We feel
it does require an answer. I mean, we can give a lot of answers to it, but it does require an answer, because how are we supposed to feel something? I mean, go to Israel. You just came back from Israel.
Yeah. I wasn't even going to say that.
Okay, yeah.
But I wasn't around during the house. $100, and I looked, if we were alive then.
If we would be. If we would be alive then. So we weren't alive then.
No, I know, but
we weren't.
I mean, there are other things in history that if I was alive then, it would not have been affected.
I mean, you can go to.
I wouldn't have been there.
Right. You can go to the Crusades. For example, I went to Rome. You go to the Crusades, and how many millions of Jews were murdered then? There's not even a number. So I have a much more closer feeling to the Holocaust because my father went through the Holocaust. self-understood. So it affected me more, the Holocaust. But can I say the Crusades? I mean, I know the story of the Crusades. I feel, I feel a tragic situation. But do I have that same feeling of the Crusades? Like I have a feeling of the Holocaust? Self-understood? Not. Now, I'm supposed to have a feeling for the Churban Beis Hamikdash. That's now we're going pretty back in history to demand. The question is not so much that self-understood that if I learn something, that's why I think that the people need to learn about the Churban Beis Hamikdash. You need to learn the Gemara. You need to go to learn the story of the Churban Beis Hamikdash to get a feeling from it. But it's not that there's an obligation to mourn the destruction, and that's why we say these haftarahs, because it's not just, maybe you should learn. It would be a good idea to learn about the Holocaust. It would be a good idea to learn about Zachar Asher Asa Lecha Amalek, right? There's a concept of to remember. There's an obligation to remember what Amalek did to you from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. There's an obligation to remember what. It's impossible to say to remember. It's an obligation to know what the Churban Beis Hamikdash means to the Jewish people today. What does the Churban Beis Hamikdash mean to the Jewish people today?
I have tried. Connection when you don't have the physical.
Okay. So that is that's beautiful. So we're talking about a spiritual reality. Now the truth is, why we say this haftarah? Why do we say this haftarah? Because Yirmiyahu, Hanavi, this was a person like me and you, lived through destruction of the temple. He lived through this destruction. Okay, he prophesied the destruction of the temple. He lived through the destruction of the temple. And the truth is, what the Rebbe is going to explain over here is that his struggle with God is really our struggle with the Eibishter at this present time. Because is prophesizing this prophecy at the end of the second temple. The end of history, you're going to learn the Gemara and the Talmud, you can go anywhere in history. Literally, it was a terrible time by the Jews. It was worse than now. It was extremely a hard time for the Jews. The darkness of exile was really deep. Romans, there was a terrible time for the Jews.
Everybody was out to get us.
Right.
Everybody.
No, they were not out to get us. They were getting us. Okay. So it was a Holocaust. It was in the midst of a Holocaust of a terrible time by the Jewish people. It was a physical Holocaust. It was a spiritual Holocaust that culminated in the prophecy of Jeremiah that ultimately the Beis Hamikdash is going to be destroyed. But the Beis Hamikdash was in the realms of destruction already. It was in the motion already. Okay, it was a terrible time for the Jewish people. We should never know such times, etc. So the Rebbe really wants to say that since we say this haftarah, there has to be, and Jeremiah doesn't want his own struggles to become a prophet to the Jewish people at that period of time, because the Jews were in essence, and his prophecy was basically people were doomed. That was his prophecy. His prophecy is the destruction of the temple is going to happen. It's going to be a terrible time for the Jews. But he starts off with this conversation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's what the Rebbe wants to say. What is the conversation between God and Yirmiyahu Hanavi that we read in Mitzvot this coming Shabbos? What is the meaning of this statement? That the Eibishter says that even though you don't want to prophesy doom, you don't want to prophesy destruction, because that's what's going to happen. You know what? And why you don't want to prophesy? Saying, who am I and what am I? And I'm in the dilemma, just like every other Jew is in the dilemma right now. David says, no. Well, I know you when you were formed in your womb. I knew you when you were not emerged from your womb. I have appointed you a prophet of nations. I have made you, and that is what the Rebbe is going to bring out. So the Rebbe, to start off this journey, the question we have to ask is in your book, text number 6. When does the soul enter the body? That's really the question that arises. When does the soul? This is not a question. This is a theological question. We're not going into the abortion issue. Okay, let's take away from that. Okay, when does the soul? This is a question in Torah. When does the soul enter the body? Because in the expression over here, it says when you have not yet formed in your womb, I knew you. When you were not yet emerging in your womb, I have appointed you. So in essence, in the pasuk over here, it sounds like you had an neshama before even you were born, before you were even conceived in your body, in your mother's stomach. Already God says, I have already known who you are, and what you're going to be. So when does it really happen that the soul and the body come together? So it's a beautiful Gemara, text number 3. Darash Rab Simlai learned, Rabbi Simlai taught, a fetus in his mother's womb is comparable to a folded notebook. It rests in its hands with two sides of his head, its arms on its 2 knees, its heels on its 2 buttocks, its head rests between its knees, its mouth is closed, its umbilical cord is open, it eats what the mother eats, it drinks what the mother drinks. And then he says, there are no days more blissful for a person than the days that the fetus is in his mother's womb. It's like Mashiach's times. That 9 months is the best months of every human being. If only, as it were, in the months of old, in the days when God watched over me, which are the days that have the days that have months but do not have years. You must say that these are the months of the gestation. A fetus is then taught the entire Torah. So in essence, what the Simlai says, he says in the Gemara, the best time of a human being is when it, physically and spiritually, is when he's in his mother's stomach, mother's womb. I say the wrong word. The womb. Yeah.
This may sound funny, but
So good, but the child is totally at bliss.
I love my children.
We're not talking about the mother.
I know, but
We're talking about the child.
I remember when I was had morning sickness.
No, the baby is happy like heck. The baby is happy. He has everything it needs. No, the baby. I know the mother's not happy. The baby. We're not talking about the mother.
Okay.
We're talking about the baby.
The environment.
He has everything he needs. He lacks nothing. And not only that, he has spiritual. He's given one. He sits and learns Torah. There's an angel that sits in him and learns Torah. So spiritually and physically, this baby has no worries. The second everything goes downhill for this baby is the second it's born. That's it. Then he has challenges and headaches and problems. Everything that he's crying, he's screeching. The baby in his mother's stomach is living the life. He's living the life. He's living the life. He's living the life. That's it. So that's the best time. But also the most important thing over here is spiritually it's the best time because we know, as you'll soon see, that the baby is a scholar. Baby is a scholar. He knows that the child knows the entire Torah. He's made to forget it. While he's in his mother's stomach, he has everything physically, everything spiritually. There's nothing better. Life could not be better for this baby. That's what Rabbi Simlai says, right? So that sounds like the best time for a child. The best time for any human being is 9 months in your mother's womb, which then you have both spiritually and physically everything that you need in life.
Whose name?
What?
Whose name are you pronouncing?
Rab Simlai.
It says not Not media.
I don't know. I'm holding page 6.
Text 3.
I'm on text 3. Rab Simloi.
Right here,
Okay.
okay, sorry.
Can I ask a
Then we
question,
have
Rabbi
another
Booker?
Gemara. Let's go to another Gemara.
Wait, the
Yeah.
baby can't perform any.
Yeah.
He can't like spill in.
Yeah, right. You cannot do that. I am not arguing he cannot do that, but he doesn't need to do that. He doesn't need to do that. He's not obligated to do that. Machayim. He has no obligations. He has no responsibilities. He has nobody to answer to. He has no cares in the world. Everything is taken care of for him. And that's what Rabbi Simloi says. I mean, you can argue, you can disargue. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Maybe. Yes, Jenny. We didn't finish the thought yet. So you have a question already?
Yeah, but, well, don't the
I hear
other
you.
people have questions, or should we call
Let's
this a
have questions.
comment? Okay.
Yeah.
So in the secular world, there's always all this talk about, people can, and the babies in the womb can pick up whatever difficulty the mother's going through. Is that not a Torah concept?
Well, if the mother's going to hurt herself, maybe, yeah, because what the mother eats, the baby eats. So therefore,
like
the
if
mother
she's
should
in
eat.
Let's say she's in a bad marriage, or she's, or the Holocaust, or a million other traumas and hardships that could happen. So people say the baby picks that up. And I just want to know if that's a Torah concept, or is that just
I don't know.
secular?
I can't answer. Can't
You know
answer.
what, Rabbi?
Could be.
Could be her hormones
Yeah.
or a stress.
Could be. I don't know. I don't know. Shmuel does not talk about that. So I don't know all the ins and outs. Shmuel says, talking in a general situation, that the baby has everything it needs when he's in his mother's womb, and basically, and the main thing is, I think Shmuel wants to emphasize is that the fetus then is taught the entire Torah. So yeah, spiritually and physically, he has everything that it needs. I'm not talking about everything. Every rule has its exception. Okay. So let's go to Gemara. Let's go to the Gemara. Let's go to another Gemara in text number 4, which is another interesting Gemara. It is taught. When does an infant enter the world to come? When does it start? I mean, the Gemara is really a question. When does it start the process that everything is for the world to come? But when does it start that process? When does it come? Which over here it means world to come means Tchias HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead. When does that whole process start in Jewish law? This is important. I'll just soon see because it makes a difference in Jewish law. When does an infant enter? That's the expression. When does an infant enter the world to come? When does this obligation start? The Gemara asks the question. So Rabbi Chia and every Gemara, you always have 3 opinions. Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Shimon bar Rebbe disagree. One said when they are born, process starts the second he's born. And the other said when they speak, when they start to speak. Ravina said from the moment of conception. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said from circumcision, if it's a boy. A Tana taught the name of Rav Meir from the moment the infant says Amen for the first time.
Don't you enter the world to come when you die?
But when does the process start? In essence, when does that process start? What the world to come will be. When does that process start?
Basically, when we're born.
Okay, your first word. Oh, wait, your conception. When does that process start? When does that process start? The truth is, you learn Chassidus, it says conception. The Alter Rebbe says that the parents, what they're thinking at the time of conception, that's the levushim, that's the garments that the child has. So already, in essence, it could be if people are not thinking holy things, they're already giving this child they're giving him a handicap already to his journey to the world to come. At conception, they're thinking chveisvas. So if they were thinking godly things at the moment of conception, maybe they give the child godly clothes. They can help them out. Here the rabbis have a dilemma. They have a question. It's just interesting. It's a concept. When does it happen? When is the journey of the soul? Really, the question is, when starts the journey of the neshama and the guf? When starts the journey that we integrate the neshama and the guf? That's really the question. When does this neshama need to affect this body? When does this neshama is thus in the journey of the body? When does it really need to affect the body? Guf is the body. When does the neshama and the guf, when do they meet up? That they need to not only meet up, when they need to become integrated one with another. When do they actually integrate one with the other? When does suddenly the body and the guf have to start talking to each other, really? Okay.
Just from the beginning?
No, they can be the body and the guf together. The neshama and the guf can be together, but they're both separate. But they're both on their own personal journey. When does it need to become? It's like dating. There's a dating period. Right, we're dating. We get married. Now we got to learn to live with each other. We can be dating for months. We can be dating for years. Oh, we're dating. We can walk away from each other as long as we're dating. Now, when do we have to live with each other? When does the neshama and the guf have to live with one another? When do they need to get used to one another? When do they need to become responsible for one another? However one you want to use. And that's really the Gemara's question. That's the argument. Because that's the outcome. That's the reward. That's in essence, when does the reward, right? So I'm going to give the same analogy of marriage. When we're dating, we're not responsible. Maybe we can go Dutch when we're dating, right? You pay for yours, I'll pay for mine. Now we get married, you're responsible. We're paying Dutch. No, yours is mine. So when does this situation happen? It's a question. It's a theological question. So ultimately in halacha, we say 13 years old.
12 to
Girls, 13 for boys, bat mitzvah. Then we say, oh, now you're responsible. That means you're responsible. Now you're responsible. Till you're 13, do whatever you want. What do you mean? You have a neshama. The neshama is part of the guf till 13, to 12. They're living together, but they're not integrated with one another. Azal established 13, or 12 or 13. And the truth is, we go to add another 7 years, 19 or 20 to 20. We say we're not responsible. There's still not total integration. And then we say even more. Till you get married, you're really not really truly not, because until you're married, you were half a soul. You were not complete, right? You didn't complete this. So the really completion is marriage. It's all the journey. I want to explain. It's all the concept of the integration of the neshama and the guf. The truth is, that's why the Mishnah says, don't look at the vessel, but what's in it. You can have an old vessel that doesn't even have a new wine. You can have a new vessel that has old wine. Because it's all about integration. Am I using the right word, integration? The way these two entities come together, that's important. It's not important that you have a neshama and a guf. It's the way that the neshama and the guf come together. How is my neshama affecting my guf? How is my guf? My guf is a body. How is the body affecting the soul? How is the soul affecting the body? That's the question. You shouldn't think we might think maybe the body and the guf come together at 40 years old. But no, some sages say it comes together at time of conception. That's when the body and the guf are important together. The truth is just to put everybody on ease right now. We'll know the statement of Mishnah, text number 7, text number 5. The Mishnah says, Kol Yisrael Yeshem Chelek Leilam Haba. Every Jew has a part in the world to come. Every Jew. Doesn't make a difference when your initial part of you came into, whether it's a conception or it's at the birth or it's a bar mitzvah or whatever. Kol Yisrael Yeshem Chelek Leilam Haba. Right? Because all your people are righteous, shall possess the land forever. They are the shoots of my plant, my handwork, which I glorify. So ultimately, everybody has a part in the world to come. The question is only, when did you start that journey? When did you start that journey? Whether you started the journey for conception, or even as Jeremiah the prophet says, God says, I started this journey before conception. The Rebbe. Let's get to the Rebbe. That's the Sikha over here. And that's in text number 6. So the Rebbe says when the fetus is in the mother's womb, it has a godly soul. But the soul is not integrated with its body. Even the purely physical life force is not fully revealed and active. Hence, it is sustained by the food of the mother. True entrance of the soul into the body is when the body and soul become unified and integrated, such that one can see the soul affecting the body. We might be all yet young, maybe. Even once a child is born, the effect of the godly soul is not immediately apparent. Rather, it's the animating soul. It's the behemoth, which is synonymous with the physical life force that derives their existence. Only once a baby boy is circumcised does the soul become truly connected. That's how we do circumcision to a boy. And the girl is as if she's circumcised. So that's when we do a physical connection. The body, bris milah. God commanded to circumcise. Physical modify the body. As such, furthers the connection of the body and the soul at another level. A girl is considered to be circumcised. So that's why a girl is a higher level than a boy, because she doesn't need to have that physical modification. When you look at the journey of the soul in the body, so the fetus has a soul, right? The birth of the baby is another level of the integration of the soul in the body. The circumcision is another level, the baby naming, ultimately the bar mitzvah, etc. Integration between the soul and the body. Halacha ultimately is very interesting. Halacha is text number 7. So this we should. I hope we all know the concept of washing our hands in the morning. We wash our hands. Obligation to wash your hands. It's a mitzvah. We make a bracha until it's dayim. We wash our hands 6, right? 6 times, backwards and forwards, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? The Gemara says, the Alter Rebbe, in text number the Alter Rebbe, our sages cautioned in the Talmud about spirit of impurity resting on a person's hands upon awakening, saying that it's not removed entirely until it's washed 3 times alternately, right? They also warn that before washing, one should not touch their eyes, nose, ears, and mouth. Why? Because when one sleeps, the holy soul departs. The spirit of impurity takes hold of his body. When the soul returns to the body, the spirit of impurity departs from the entire body and remains only in the hands. For this reason, it becomes customary to be lenient regarding to the washing of the hands of younger children for bar mitzvah, have not yet reached an educational age with regard to Torah mitzvahs. This is because their soul enters the body in a real way when the boy reaches 13 and one day and a girl reaches 12. This In essence, the Alter Rebbe says that this concept is not just a theory. Since there's no integration before bar mitzvah, it's all education. No, he has no mitzvah to wash his hands. He doesn't have the mitzvah to wash his hands. You're washing the kid's hands. You might be making a bracha with him. It's education. Why? He has the same soul like you. I went to sleep like you as an adult. He went, no. But he doesn't have the same integration. He doesn't have that same integration like you have. And therefore, he doesn't have that same mitzvah. So this is not just a concept of philosophy. This is a concept that affects halacha. How does integration between the neshama and a body? The less the integration, the less is the impurity. Okay. At that time, they are obligated by scriptural law to observe the mitzvah and are considered to be punishable age when they're bar mitzvah or bas mitzvah. The entity of the soul, holy soul, begins at the age in which a child begins training of Torah observance and is obligated by the sages. An earlier phase of this entry begins with the mitzvah of circumcision. Therefore, a person who's careful to wash his hands of an infant from the day of circumcision may be called holy. Therefore, you should start washing your kid's hands. When he's born, you should wash his hands. You wash his hands, yeah?
So is the reason boys will be
Boys will be boys.
evil, an evil nature, a mischievous nature about boys. And is that because the neshama is really not integrated with their goof? Their animalistic soul.
It says in a positive by a girl. Being a Seder, a greater understanding is given to girls.
Yeah,
So girls
you don't say
have-
girls will be girls. You say boys will be boys. you
Right.
know, and you
Because
can
a greater understanding was given to girls. They have a greater understanding in their concept of what their purpose in life is and what the connection of the neshama in their body. While a boy doesn't have that kind of a concept. The truth is, 20, when we say 20, is really a boy, not a girl. 20. That means in the Torah, 13 is a bar mitzvah boy, but still the Torah says I'm going to wait till 20. But maybe boys will be boys. So,
But we're fighting this business with gun control, 18 versus 21. There is a difference between the hormonal levels with an 18-year-old to 21-year-old.
100%.
Okay.
We're not talking. Every rule has its exception.
Because I think
We're not talking about-
25 or whatever.
And still be consummation.
Truth is, this has nothing to do with age. We're giving you Torah age, but ultimately, again, don't look at the values, but look what's in it. You can have a young old person still a child because he hasn't integrated his neshama with his body. That's it.
Rabbi Buka, could you just elaborate or clarify what a neshama that's integrated with a body looks like? Like a little kid, how would you know? And now I guess when people get older, you could say they're kind, they're
It says.
self-aware.
So the answer is you're mechuyev b'mitzvahs. Integrated means the Eibush says, now I trust you to become holy, not just to be a human being, a good person. I trust you now to become a holy individual, to connect to your neshama, to do things that are above yourself, to connect to things that are greater than yourself, to become godly. And that's what the Eibush wanted. From 13 years old, I gave you a neshama. Why did I give you a neshama for? Why did I give you a neshama for? I gave you the neshama that you should become a holy individual. I didn't give you, if I just want you to be a regular human being, then I wouldn't need to give you a neshama. I gave you the neshama so that you should be a holy individual. And that's the truth is the next statement that he says. The question is, why would you teach a child 9 months in his mother's stomach the whole Torah and then make him forget? Why wouldn't every child, if he sat and he had the best teacher and he learned the entire Torah, imagine we would all come out of our mother's wombs, Torah scholars, and finish. Why would we do that? So self-understood, we did that because we want that the child should have free choice and should learn on himself. But why did we teach him? Because that's the point. The Eibush says, I gave you a neshama. I gave you, not only I gave you a neshama, I gave you the entire Torah already. I have already taught you the entire Torah. It's not something that you're going to learn now. It's something that you have already learned. I have already all capabilities and possibilities. There's nothing that I have not given you, even before you came out of your mother's womb. That's why text number 8 says, once the child enters the world, an angel hits the child in the mouth, gives him a zetz, and it causes him to forget all the Torah he's learned.
There's no specific person that said. What is teaching into
The sage, I don't know. Not everything in the Gemara says this. A person who says it or doesn't say it. I don't know if it's important to know who says it or not. Now you understand what the struggle of Yirmiyahu had in his life. And that's the same struggle we have in our own life. That's the same struggle. Yirmiyahu lived in a time of total darkness. And he said, who am I? Dark world. When I lived in my mother's stomach, I had my mother's womb. I learned all. But right now, I'm in a dark situation. And that's why the Rebbe writes in the next word, Yirmiyahu is given as manshal t'chiyah v'haster. So I'm sorry, Lama Nikishma Yirmiyahu. Why was his name Yirmiyahu? Because in his time, Jerusalem became a place of destruction. You have to imagine the darkness that was in the time of Yirmiyahu, the end of the Second Temple, that his name, Yirmiyahu, was called by the way. And the next thing the Frierdiker Rebbe says, by contrast to the prophecy of Isaiah, Yirmiyahu lived in time of concealment and rejection by God. And that was his name. So Yirmiyahu lived in a time that was total darkness, total challenge in the world, like we live today. We live in a time, Taka might be wonderful times, but we're not living in the same time of Yirmiyahu in a physical way, but in a spiritual way, we're living in a time of total darkness. And we have the same question that Yirmiyahu has. We have the same question. Just like Yirmiyahu turns to the Eibush and says, who am I? How am I capable to do it? Living in such a terrible time, how is it possible for me to live in such a time and I should overcome this situation that is happening around me? And what is the Eibush to answer him? And that's an essence of the Eibush to answer. God answers each and every one of us. And look at the words of God. And that's what he brings in text number 1. He returns to the words of the Eibishter. The Eibishter says, what do you mean who you are? You're a godly neshama. What do you mean who you are? You might not feel the connection, but trust me, if you want to make this connection with your neshama, you have that capability because I've given you a neshama. I know you before you were born. When I have not formed you in the womb, I knew you. And when you have not yet emerged from the womb, I have anointed you. A prophet of nations, I made you. The Rebbe says in text number 10b, with these words, before I have formed you In your womb, I knew you. God is telling Yirmiyahu, you have a holy soul, a literal share of God's source in something far greater, higher and greater than the lowest depths of concealment. You're telling me that you're in darkness? I know that you're in darkness. I made it. You don't have to tell me something new. I know that you're in darkness, but I know that you have an neshama. I know who you are. In essence, the Rebbe is saying that the Avish, that we say this prophecy, we're saying this prophecy in the time of the 3 weeks, where it's the concept of Gullus. You might not be in the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash, but we still don't have a Beis HaMikdash, right? We still don't have a Beis HaMikdash. We might have beautiful shows, we might have beautiful reality. We still in the Gullus, we're still in exile. There's anti-Semitism, there's hatred. We don't see godliness. We say, how can we get out of this? How can a small guy like me, a young guy like me, get out of this? He says, it's not a question how you can get out of it. Telling you, I gave you the capability to get out of it. In essence, just like God tells Yirmiyahu, he tells you, why can this verse be talking to you? This, what the Abish tells Yirmiyahu, is about every human being, about every Jew. Yirmiyahu is telling every Jew. In essence, God is telling every Jew, don't sit over here and sit down and cry and destruction, we'll never get out of this, we'll never overcome this. What do you mean you never overcome this? I know you before you were your mother's womb. I know you when you were in your mother's womb, and I know you, and therefore become a leader. Do what you got to do. Now, no, why are you putting yourself down? Put yourself down. That's your choice, but not. It's untrue. It's untrue, and even though what's happening around you is terrible, doesn't change the reality that you can change. That you can do something about it. You can make something positive out of this situation. The Rebbe asked the question: so why would you teach the child and then make him forget? Text 11, the reason that to teach the fetus all the Torah is to illuminate it with divine light that inspires love and fear of God. So transcend it. The Torah he or she had learned will serve to inspire the soul. It's part of his DNA. He's not learning something new. He's reminding himself of something old, something that he knows. The Rebbe says it's not something that you just need to inspire yourself. The Avish says to the Navi, and he's saying to each and every one, inspire yourself. No, they must be made to forget the Torah so as to grant the person freedom to choose good over bad. But the soul is impacted deeply by this study, and through it gains the power to elevate the body in which is integrated. This is inspired by the residue or the scars left by the Torah learned in his mother's womb. The Rebbe goes back to the words again. The Rebbe wanted it when you listen to Haftarah this Shabbos. Look at the words of the verse 5. B'terem, just in the previous 10:8. B'terem etzrecha bebeten yadeticha. Before you were formed in your womb, I knew you. U'b'terem teitzem erechem hiskadashticha. And before you emerged from your womb, I appointed you. Hiskadashticha means I made you holy. I made you holy. This is the meaning when it is not yet merged from the womb, I have appointed you. Not only were you imbued with the Holy Soul, but you were also sanctified. Already in the womb, you were prepared and empowered for your entrance to the world by that malach who taught you the entire time. So I have put you on a plateau. Before even you were born, I have made you. Alter Rebbe in Tanya expresses in chapter 49 of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says, when you say Ata b'chartanu, that the Eibusha chose us, Kol ha'amim, the Eibusha chose us. What did you choose? Choose. It's not choice. Choice has to be something that two things are similar. Two things are similar. And I choose. That's why the Rambam, Maimonides, really asks, is there such a thing as free choice by humans? Everything you choose or I choose is because there's a reason why I choose it. The second you say there's a reason, so it's not choice. Choice means that two things are totally similar. And for no reason, I choose one over the other. Because I chose. Choice.
But you can choose good when those are not similar.
Really choice,
You're
good over
inclined
evil.
to one
There's no really choice,
versus
good over
the
evil. Why would anybody choose evil? Your choice over good over evil. No such choice. There's no choice good over evil. I think good. Why is choice by me good? I think I have choice good over evil because I think good and evil are equal, but it's not true. It's totally not true. It's false. A false conception. That's why it's not really choice. In the Torah it says, "Nasati lachem es hachayim es hamavis." I've given you life and death. Choose life. Are you serious? I've given you life and death. Choose life. That's a choice. I'm going to choose that. Choose life. I have to have a pasuk. God has to tell me, I've given you life and death. Choose life. Who's going to choose death? So I choose life. So there's whole interpretation to that. Because choice means and the truth is, because when I choose death, I think it's life too. That's why it's true. Choose real life. You can choose life A, and you can choose life B, but you're choosing really not what you think is choice, that you're choosing a different life. It's really not choice. You really should choose real life. Real life. So really, is there choice by people? I say, I chose something. I chose you. Yeah, because A, B, D, and F. I chose you out of everybody. I could have chosen somebody else. That's a bummer, Meiser. You chose me because there's a reason. If you chose, the next day you say, "Oh, it's Pasher," right? Because you realize your choice was not the right. It was not the right. So you say, "Oh, it's Pasher." That's the falling. That's what you fall on.
You thought it was.
You thought it was a choice. It's Pasher. Now. But the Eibush, so the Alter Rebbe says when it says choice is not the neshama, because a yid has a chelik alakam mal mamish, has a part of God, so it's not choice. The choice is over the guf, over the body, over the body. The Eibush chose a Jewish body, and he said this body is going to be able to now have Torah mitzvahs, do Torah mitzvahs. So when did God choose the Jewish people? When did God choose the Jews physically in the Torah? When did God choose the Jewish people? In Mitzrayim, in Egypt. Before he gave the Torah. That's why the Eibush chooses, when a person has to realize that God chose my body to put my soul into it. That was the choice. Choice, thank God. It was God. God chose my physical body to put my neshama and he chose the physical body, the guf. In essence, that's what the Abish is saying. I chose, I understand the body's in dilemma, and your time of gullus, you have all these issues. Chose you. You know what I'm trying to say? We need to realize that the Abish that chose us. You're right, we're in Churban, we're in darkness, we're things are not going that great, whether it's financially, physically, spiritually, etc., etc. Abish says, nevertheless, and Abish said, I chose you. I chose. That's my choice. That's my choice. Now, once I chose you, I say this choice can have a godly soul. This body can do Torah mitzvahs, but the choice is on the body.
God said your descendants will this. That.
Oh, that was a family. David chose a nation. The Jewish nation starts at going out of Egypt.
Wasn't until the Egyptians
That a nation. Correct.
said.
Correct.
Before that, it was a family business.
It was a trial.
Let's see. Let's finish this off. This is the meaning of when you are not yet emerged for you. I have a point. Okay, right. Okay, I'm sorry. Go to the next one. The Rebbe says, text number 13, is demanded from every Jew, together with whoever he or she is doing internally with their own soul. He or she must engage another all the way to the lowest other possibility. They must be concerned that even that the other person becomes a vehicle for the wellsprings of Torah mitzvahs. Right? We cannot, the avodah of a yid is to always reach to tell the person that he is special. Every human being is special. Every yid, every Jew is special. He's in darkness. He's doing everything wrong. He's still special. Why? Because the Abish says, I know you before. I knew you before you were in your mother's room. I changed. This is the connection between the idea is discussed in the 3 weeks. The entire reason why we are dispatched into exile is to purify and uplift the very fabric of exile. That's why we forget everything. We're in exile, we're in gullus. That's why the child that knows everything, that was given everything, even before he was born, he was given everything, forgets everything. Like the child that is given everything, forgets everything, and now has to elevate everything. But if he wasn't given all that capabilities, he would never be able to elevate anything. Maybe she says, I've given you all your possibilities. I've given you all your capabilities. I've given you all your potential. I have given it to you. Not you have given it to yourself. I have given it to you. And now, because I've given you all these unbelievable potentials, now I'm sure you can do the job. Sure you can do the job. We must do this to the extent that we turn darkness itself into light. That, the Rebbe says, that's why we start off the 3 weeks with the prophecy of Yirmiyahu. Yirmiyahu says the same thing to God. What are you asking from me? You're giving me something that I cannot do. Giving me something that I cannot control. You're giving me a message that everybody's gonna throw stones at me. And the Abisha says, I know who you are.
So we have an obligation to elevate each other.
Correct. We have an obligation to go out and not say, oh, it's a lost cause. It's done. It's not fixable. David says it is fixable. It is fixable. And you need to do it. You need to do why? Because I know you. I know your capabilities. I know who you are. I formed you. I created you. I chose you. And so too, I have chosen every single one of you. So even though this is set to Yirmiyahu, that Rebbe says, but self-understood, we say this Haftarah, this Shabbos, and we all hear it, so that we should all be Yirmiyahu. We need another Yirmiyahu to stand up and do what is right. And not to say he's nothing, I'm in darkness, and others are in darkness, and others won't listen, and they won't accomplish, and we are doomed. Chas v'shalom. The Eibush says there's no doom. There's only the concept of rectification. There's only the concept of changing darkness into light. And that's why I made Gullus. I didn't make Gullus. I didn't make exile darkness because I like darkness. I made darkness because I know that each and every one of you can do something to change some darkness into light. And that's our avodah, to change some darkness of this world into the aspect of Or. But yeah.
What's to do with the morning of the temple destruction?
Again, we mourn the temple destruction is the concept of Gullus. We are in Gullus today. That's the problem. We're in Gullus. We're in darkness, the concept of darkness. That's really what we're mourning. And we need to, and why do we mourn? Because we have to realize that they can transform this morning into happiness. We have the capability, as it says. The Rambam writes that these days of Tisha B'Av and Shivas B'Tammuz will be turned into Yemei Simcha, will be turned into holidays in Mitzvot Hashem. We have the capability of transforming these days into holidays. The truth is, it's interesting, I just said this, it says that these days will be turned into holidays, is because the Rebbe writes, because in essence, they are holidays. They are right now in an outer way as negative, but really, truthfully, they are holidays. Have to be able to reveal the holiday in this situation.
But Mashiach will come and lead us out.
Listen, this year, it's proven that's a holiday, right? Because Shivas B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av is on Shabbos. It's a nitcha, okay? So it's Tisha B'Av Shabbos, and we're eating. We're having a good lunch. We're having chows. You have to eat extra, correct? So you see that Tisha B'Av is a holiday.
Isn't Tisha B'Av supposed to be when Mashiach comes?
To a holiday. That means that it is a holiday already.
Because it's just.
It's hidden right now. It's hidden right now, but it's really a holiday. That's why the Gemara says Tisha B'Av is the day that Mashiach was born. Right? Because Tisha B'Av, really, so Tisha B'Av ultimately revealed as the ultimate holiday. Why? Because the Eibush to destroy the second temple, the first and second temple, to rebuild the third temple. Destruction for the sake of rebuilding. So really ultimately proves that the destruction was the building. There was no purpose in destruction but to build. But rebuilding. And that's the beauty. That's when you say the word over here, you see we must to the extent that we turn darkness itself into light. See, most of us think we need to push away darkness by light. Siddhis demands to turn darkness itself into light.
The revelation.
To see that darkness is light. Darkness. We need to change the darkness into light. We need to take the Tisha B'Av and turn it into a yontif. Not just, no more Tisha B'Av. No, Tisha B'Av becomes a yontif.
Is this year different?
Because the Tisha B'Av is on Shabbos. So in Shabbos, you don't fast. We fast Sunday. So we're Tisha B'Av this year, and we're sitting and eating. It's Tisha B'Av, but we're sitting and eating.
Throwing on
No,
Tisha
Saturday night.
God bless you all, everybody. We'll see you, Mitchum, next week. Have a wonderful and beautiful